The U.S. has started transferring ISIS detainees from Syria to neighboring Iraq. They may eventually move as many as 7,000 people. Jennifer Griffin joined us this morning. Are we worried about the safety of these troops? Is this a security move?
It's a big security concern right now, Stuart. The situation in Syria is very tenuous as we speak. The U.S. military and senior diplomats have tried to broker a ceasefire between the new Syrian government led by Ahmad al-Shara and the Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF, which are made up of Kurds who helped the U.S. for over a decade destroy ISIS. Those SDF forces have been guarding more than a dozen prisons and refugee camps that are filled with thousands of hardened ISIS fighters and their families. Now the SDF, which was supposed to integrate into the Syrian security forces, have pulled back from those positions, securing the ISIS prisons and camps, fearing that elements of the Syrian security forces and Turkey will try to kill the Kurds, raising concerns about the potential for a massive ISIS prison break. As a result, the U.S. military announced it is in the process of moving 7,000 ISIS prisoners to Iraq, where the U.S. has pulled all of its troops back to Kurdish Iraqi-controlled Erbil. Here is the latest statement from CENTCOM, quote, "The transfer mission began while U.S. forces successfully transported 150 ISIS fighters held at a detention facility in Hasaka, Syria, to a secure location in Iraq. Ultimately, up to 7,000 ISIS detainees could be transferred from Syria to Iraqi-controlled facilities."
They may escape while or before they're actually moved, because not all have been moved yet. And we're talking about upwards of 7,000 radicalized individuals.
Now there is consideration to pull all U.S. troops out of Syria. There are about 9,000 U.S. troops in Syria as part of the counter-ISIS mission. The Iraqi government positioned troops along the Syrian border in an attempt to seal it, fearing that there will soon be a large exodus of Kurds across the border fleeing the Syrian security forces. Last weekend, about 200 low-level ISIS fighters recently escaped from Syria's Shadadi prison, though many were later recaptured. The bottom line, Stuart, it's a high-stakes game and could interfere with the U.S. military's ability to do anything militarily in Iran with this developing situation in Syria. Stuart.
All right, Jennifer, thank you very much. Victoria Coates joins me now. Let's follow on from this discussion, Victoria. What are the implications of America moving troops completely out of Syria?
Well, good to be with you, Stuart. This is something the president, excuse me, has wanted to do for some time. It was also an issue during the first term. The judgment was that we had too few troops to do anything significant, and enough troops that they were a target. And we've lost some people recently in an ISIS attack. And so the question is, do you want to double down? Do you want to have a bigger footprint in Syria so they can defend themselves? Or is this not our problem? Is this not our mission? And, the new government of Syria, the president's tried to work with them. The administration has engaged with them. If they're going to partner with Turkey and go after the SDF, as Jen was reporting, that is really bad for us. So it is one of the worst problems in the Middle East, which is saying something, and I'm very glad the Abraham Lincoln Carrier Group is on its way there. That gives us U.S. sovereign territory to use for whatever purposes the president deems.
Okay, I'm going to change the subject. The administration is looking for insiders to facilitate regime change in Cuba to try and end communist rule. This sounds like we've got the CIA in Havana stirring things up, looking for a replacement for the Castro regime. Have I got it right?
Well, they certainly did a great job in Venezuela, and I think there's a reason CIA Director John Ratcliffe was the first senior administration official to visit after Maduro was ousted. I think their intelligence was exquisite on Maduro. That's what allowed that raid to happen without a single American death, and perhaps not coincidentally, 30 Cuban deaths, because the Cubans were all there guarding Maduro. Anyway, I think that could be replicated in Cuba. Obviously, we have a Secretary of State who's pretty intimately familiar with that situation, being of Cuban descent. And what a great thing that would be, Stuart, to have 90 miles off the floor of Florida, off the shores of Florida, rather, a friend and an ally to the United States, a partner to us rather than a deadly enemy.
You don't think that we'd try a military takeover in Cuba? We wouldn't attack them, would we?
I don't think we have to. I think that's what Venezuela demonstrated. And of course, if you think back to the failure of the Bay of Pigs, the Cuban Missile Crisis, military entanglement with Cuba can be very, very dicey. And I think, as I said, it's not necessary here.
Got it. Victoria Coates, thank you very much indeed. You have a great weekend. Wherever you are, watch out for the storm. And we'll see you later. Thanks, Victoria.
You too.